Hey everybody, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. Thought I'd do a quick vlog on Hurricane Beryl because it's getting a lot of attention for bad reasons because it is the strongest, earliest season storm we've ever seen. And records here in the Atlantic go back to 1851. Yeah, a lot of that's pre-satellite and hurricane hunters, but the Caribbean actually, because it's been a very populated area since the 18, 17, 1600s, there's good record keeping in the Caribbean from landfalls and from shore reports and from ships. So those reports go back to 1851. It's almost unprecedented, at least in our time, that we've seen a storm this strong. There it is, peaked at 165-mile-per-hour winds overnight, Category 5. One of the strongest we've seen, really, at any time of the year. But this is a great chart, kind of puts it in perspective. So this kind of shows you where Beryl ranks for this time of year. So this is maximum wind speed by day of the year in the Atlantic since 1851, where the tropical database goes back. And you can see that's where Beryl is here in early July, late June, all by itself, outside of the realm of anything we've seen. Typically, we see these storms August, September, and October. In fact, just looking at the ACE or the accumulated cyclone energy or the conditions out there, this is a storm we typically would see around August 21st. Not July 1st. So way ahead of schedule. We're breaking records that we saw back in 2005, which was a crazy season, if you remember. So where is this system? Because I'm getting a lot of questions like, Brad, how's it going to impact the Carolinas? Really not at all, to be honest with you. Everyone sees this system and starts freaking out for good reason. It's a strong storm. But remember, the Atlantic's a big area. Here in the Carolinas, we've got great weather right now. Even Florida is fine. This is not going anywhere up here. Now, long term, folks in Texas paying attention, but there's a little bit of good news here, not great news for the Caribbean. Obviously, Jamaica's next in line, and the Cayman Islands could still be a major hurricane, which is nothing to scoff at. Don't get caught up in this thing weakening slightly because it's a monster storm. It would be a monster storm at a 2 or 3, so still got to pay attention. But as it gets close to Belize and the Yucatan Peninsula, there's going to be increasing wind shear, which should help break it up a little bit. It's still going to be strong, so heavy rain, strong winds, but it'll be probably a minimal hurricane or a Category 2, still powerful. But then it gets into the Gulf of Mexico and the Bay of Campeche in about 7 days, and it will be much weaker. There's going to be land interaction, wind shear, dry air, so it's likely going to be weaker. But it is probably going to bring some moisture to Texas in this area, so maybe not a bad thing because Texas would love moisture. They don't want to see flooding, but that's kind of where it's heading. And what's steering it is the heat dome, which we're going to experience firsthand seating over the southeast. This thing is going to steer it like a big gear or big wheel, and it's going to keep that all to the south. Now, long term, you may see some guidance out there, and I've seen some of this, and I'll show you the long range ensemble forecast here that looks something like this. Now, remember, when you see a chart like this is all of the guidance kind of coupled together. Whoops, let me put that back up there for you. Kind of all coupled together there to give you a basic idea on where the remnants could be. Now, what you have to remember in a chart like this is the storm could still be here, could be here, but it's most likely going to be in the middle. Now, what's ever left of it goes to Texas, and then up in here, people see this and go, uh-oh, but look at this. This is a very low probability. In fact, that doesn't even mean it'll be a tropical system. It could be nothing. Could be some moisture, could actually even completely fall apart. But you can kind of see where the ridge of high pressure is. It's right over the Carolinas, and this thing is going to steer whatever's left heading off towards the north and west. So what would happen to this long term? Would we get some much needed rain from it? No, unfortunately not, and let me show you why. All right, so let's look at the long-term forecast, because one thing to remember, long-term forecasts, a lot of uncertainty, and in the long term, when you see tropical models that go out 7, 10, 15 days, they just tell you where the remnants could be or whatever's left of it. They don't always tell you what it is. And in many cases, you just kind of got to ignore some of these really long range stuff. There's a reason there's a higher probability in red, moderate in yellow, and then it tapers off to blue, which is low. Means the chances of that being there is pretty low, or at least low confidence. So let's look long term at where this system could be. So there it is. I'll move the map. You can see it down to the south. This is today. We'll go through time. You know, it's probably not, that's too far north, but it is going to impact Jamaica. We'll go into the weekend. This is July 4th. We'll go into the 5th, probably Friday affecting the Yucatan Peninsula, Cozumel, Cancun area. And then it gets into the Gulf of Mexico this weekend. So this will be Saturday. That's where it is, possibly as a weak tropical storm or some kind of remnant low depression. Still, it'll have a name because it'll keep the name until it dissipates completely. So this will be Beryl. We'll go into the weekend. So by Sunday, some moisture moving into Texas. You can see it's not as strong. There's only one isobar. Here we are up with the heat dome baking us. By the way, we're going to be absolutely cooking under this high pressure system. This is the flow around high pressure. All kinds of wind shear. Now it's interacting with land and dry air. We'll go through Saturday and Sunday. We'll get into next week, Monday, and where to go? There's some moisture left over Houston somewhere in here, possibly. We'll go into early next week. I can't even find it anymore. So there's probably some remnant low or moisture somewhere in here. Could be here, could be here. There's a front clearly somewhere in here. So it's interacting with that. So it's basically gone. And even the moisture seems to be dissipated. So this is by next week. So this is next. What is next? The 9th is next Tuesday. So a week from today. I don't see any remnants of a tropical low. Don't even see a low pressure system. Maybe some moisture over Louisville. It just gets lost into the system. So that kind of shows you what happens to the system. It's really not going to impact us at all. I'd love to see some of this moisture. You can see the big ridge over the Atlantic. You know, for us to get tropical activity, what we look for is the ridge of high pressure to be here and actually steering stuff more like this, or coming up through the Gulf of Mexico this way. Right now, something so far south typically is going to go like this, and some further north usually goes out to sea. So there's a very small area of steering currents that actually sends things our way. And right now, Beryl is not heading our way. So when you see these long range outlooks for the remnants, that's nothing. We're not going to see a drop of rain out of Beryl right now. In fact, we would love to see a drop of rain. It's just not going to happen. So think about the folks in the Caribbean. They're the ones suffering from Beryl. This is the start of a very active hurricane season. I'd love to tell you, we're past the worst of it, but we're not even close to the peak. 2005 was an all-time record breaker. That was Katrina's year. We also had Wilma. We also had Rita. I mean, we just had category 5 after category 5. That was a rough year. And most of the records we're seeing broken already here in June and early July are records from that season. Remember, we're already on the D storm. So we had Alberto, Beryl, and Chris already. D is next. That year, 2005, Dennis didn't happen until well late into July. So we're likely going to have Dennis way ahead of schedule as well. So we're already going to be on the D storm, and it isn't even 4th of July. Remember, the peak of the season is around September 10th. Okay, today is July 2nd. So be prepared. Nothing to be scared about right now, but just know you need to be prepared. Time is of the essence. Prepare now for hurricane season. Don't wait until there is a storm that actually threatens the Carolinas. Have a great 4th of July. It'll be hot, it'll be toasty, but Beryl will not be our problem.